you always need a good bunch of parsley, and that's no good. I think that basil doesn't freeze well, and it's a summer herb, and in the summer you can get it for less or grow it. I think a good cook should have a few pots on the windowsill if you have a sunny windowsill. But what I would like to know, if it's winter and it calls for 2 sprigs of rosemary, how much dried rosemary you need, because that's ridiculous. You know that an Italian cook in mid-winter was not using fresh rosemary. So I think that's pushing it too far, if you see what I mean. It needs a balance.
What about, I know you said that you don't work with chefs, although Lydia, I guess, is an exception, right?
Well, I have worked with chefs. I worked with Albert Stockley, for instance, and Andre Soltner, his wonderful book. But Stockley, it was very interesting because he was the chef of the original Four Seasons. He was a great big Swiss man. And then he had his own restaurant out in Connecticut. And I went out and worked with him because I got these recipes that would say, put it in a hot oven for 10 minutes. Well, it doesn't cook in my oven in 10 minutes. And I realized that his oven was roaring hot. And so I said to him, you know, you're not helping us. We can't do these recipes in our home ovens. And he went out and he bought a little, the average woman's little dinky stove, and put it in his country camp place. And he did all these recipes again on them. So you can work with it if you talk sense and they're willing to make the effort. I have done some chef's schools.
And what determines whether you'll do it?
I usually meet and talk to somebody, and I get a feeling of whether we work well together.
Another person I'd like you to kind of talk about how you went about working with was Ed Lewis.
Oh yes, I meant to. This again was during the period when I was interested in the American story, and by chance, the president then of Random House, we were part of Random House, asked me if I would see a woman named Edna Lewis and her writing partner. They had done a book about the restaurant Edna Lewis was working in. It was about to be published. I think he wanted me to take it over. Anyway, they came to see me, and I was immediately struck by this beautiful Afro-American woman who had such grace and dignity, and she made her own clothes out of batik material, and her hair was swept up in dangling earrings, most beautiful long fingers. And they came in and we chatted, and I said, I can't take over the book at this stage, but tell me about yourself. And Edna started telling me that she grew up in a little town called Freetown. Her grandfather was a freed slave, and it was like a communal farm community. And as she talked about things and remembered them, her eyes just danced with pleasure. And I said, you know, that's the book I want. Go, please just go home and try a chapter. I'd like to hear how you lived on that farm and the foods you made and the whole cycle of the year. And so she went away with her partner, and about a week or two later they brought me a chapter. And I read it and I said, that's not you. But that isn't the voice I heard telling me these stories. I mean, it was just bland. And at that point, her collaborator got up and said, you know, I really think I'm not needed. And she didn't say it bitterly, she said it with great grace. And she said, I think Edna should be writing her own book. And so she did. And she came in every week to chat with me. And then I'd say, go home, put it down. And she wrote on long yellow paper, non-stop sentence. Southern narrative, the voice, and I asked questions. I remember at one point I'd said, because we decided to do it through the seasons, I said that it's November and you haven't given us a Thanksgiving dinner. And she sort of looked out the window and nodded her head and said, well, we didn't celebrate Thanksgiving, we celebrated Emancipation Day. And so we had an Emancipation Day dinner. That was one of the really most rewarding experiences of my editing life, because out of that came just a beautiful book. And she would even say things like, listen to the sound of the cake competition. Listen to the sound of the cake to tell if it's done. And there was also a spirit in that book of hard work is the reward. The reward for hard work is good food. And it's such a pleasure in life. It's a real celebration. No, I'm glad you asked me that.